Well, good evening, everybody, and Merry Christmas. I hope everybody's getting ready for the holidays and hopefully you have some time off with family and friends and get past all the hustle and bustle and get ready for what the real meaning of Christmas is, right? We celebrate our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and his birth, and we celebrate in that. So, welcome, everybody. Welcome to the new members of the group. Welcome those that have been around for a while um, as we celebrate this Christmas season. Last week we talked a little bit about planning into 2024, and it's a great time to reevaluate and kind of re-kickstart things. So hopefully, everybody will take an opportunity to kind of get things in gear, financial planning in 2024. And specifically, if you haven't started your retirement planning, to do that in 2024, you got to start somewhere. It's never too late. It's never too early. Doesn't matter how much you have. You got to have that plan in place. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today. Is what makes up a retirement plan. And by the way, those of you watching me live, hit me up with a hashtag live or hashtag replay if you're doing this on a replay. Put any comments in the comment section down below if you have questions, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, or you can direct message me as well. For those of you that are new in the group, or maybe some that aren't so new, we do send out direct messages to people. If you have not seen that, if we're not friends on Facebook, I want to encourage you to friend me so you can see all my different posts. But if we're not, go into the message in your Facebook Messenger, go to the message request tab, and you might have some messages in there from me. We've been doing that a lot more here recently. Really easy to find because if you're not friends, you can still message people, but if you're not friends, it goes into the message request. So check that out in your message request folder on Messenger, and then friend me as well because I post stuff on the personal profile here as well. So anyway, let's dive into a plan. We talked a little bit about some of this, about what makes up a plan, and it's very personal for everybody. It's not a one size fits all. It is different for every individual. Everybody's plan is unique. Now there are some common components of every plan. There's things everybody needs to think about, but how you resolve those things are different for everybody, or can be different for everybody. And some people have more complicated, or some people are more simple. So I always like to start off with, you always hear, or maybe you've heard in the past these commercials or people talking about what's your retirement number, and they put this big number above your head. And that's all great. You got to get there. But there's so much more to it. I think they're not doing people justice. They're oversimplifying it. And, you got to really have everything laid out. So we're going to talk about a little bit about that today. You've seen some of this stuff before, but I want to keep it at a level that we're going to talk about just what are the different components. Before I dive into that, go out to the Facebook group page. And I put a poll out there. Some people have responded to it already, but I put a poll out there about what are some things that you guys would like to talk about in the group, or hear about, or learn about in the group. I put a poll with several different options out there. You can click on one, or you can click on multiples, all the ones that apply to you that you want to learn more about, or you can actually write one in as well. So that write-in ballot. So you can write one in there. If there's one that's not listed, you can go out there and do that. Please go ahead and fill out the form, take the poll rather. It just gives us some insight of what's on people's minds and how we can help, and what kind of content we can put out there for you. Especially as we get planning for 2024, we're looking for a big year in 2024 with the group and helping people out. So please do that when you get a moment. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. We're going to talk about a few things. Share screen. Let's do this. All right, so you may have seen this in another presentation. I'm not going to go into all the specific details, but it really outlines some really good concepts of the plan, or retirement plan. So, you kind of go up the mountain there. You have the allocation, and then on the downside, the designation side, that's the disbursement side. So many people think about the allocation side and accumulation phase, and that's great. But you also got to think about the distribution phase, the drawdown phase, because how you do that, what accounts you use, what accounts you draw down from, and in what order, can have a profound impact on taxes. It can have an impact on how long your money's going to last. So there's some things to think about there. Okay. So as you're going up the mountain there, bottom thing there is you put a plan in place. So you're going to put a plan in place. You're going to figure out your risk tolerances and your risk score to figure out how and where we're going to navigate the different investments and vehicles to put your nest egg. And then we're kind of focusing on that personalized range of returns as we continue to climb up and accumulate up that mountain. Now, notice that's all phase one, but notice up at the top there, there's a danger zone. It kind of goes across the peak. and you have some at the front side and some at the bottom side. There is a danger zone there that we call that because you want to start protecting your nest egg. 2 to 5 years, really 2 to 3 years before retirement, and then the first 5 years or so of retirement is kind of that danger zone. There's a thing that we talk about, and I'll touch on this in a minute, a little bit more, is sequence of returns risk that so many people don't think about, but it could really wipe out or have a huge impact on your retirement. So we start shifting when we get it in that danger zone, get a little bit more conservative, you get a little more protective. You want to make sure those core expenses are taken care of. You start making some adjustments. So that's in that danger zone area. It's definitely a time of transition. So then you go over that peak, you get over the top, you retire, and then you start thinking about, okay, how am I recreating that paycheck? You start about the term retirement income. You got to plan out retirement income. So the first part of the plan is allocation and how am I going to build a nest egg? What am I going to invest in? What are my tolerances? Then the second phase is the danger zone, the protection, start protection phase, and the transition. Get over the peak, and then you get into, okay, you got to recreate what was really what you're doing in retirement. You're paying yourself. You're recreating your paycheck. Sometimes it's not 100% of what your paycheck is. On average, I think in America the average is about, they say 70-75% of your paycheck. That's an average. I've seen people as low as 40-45% of your paycheck, and people over 100% of what they're doing with their paycheck as far as what you need in retirement. But that's personal to everybody again. So we recreate your paycheck. Well, part of recreating that paycheck is how are we going to do that? What investment vehicles we're going to use, what kind of accounts, and how we're going to draw those down. It's critical. Social Security optimization or maximization. When do you file? How do you file? There is a optimization process. So phase three there kind of is the distribution, but you got to have a full plan. It's a separate section of the plan. You can break each of these plans, sections of the plan, down into different components. One of them is that Social Security. There's a lot of different rules and regulations around Social Security, but there is ways to optimize it. The Social Security office cannot tell you how to do it. They're not allowed to. All they're allowed to do is tell you literally physically how to file. Excuse me. So there is a way to optimize that, and it could be a little bit different for everybody. And then you start looking at your risk. What risk do I need to take off the table? We're going to talk about the six main risks in retirement here in a minute. That's part of the plan. So you got to identify the risks that you're faced with. Talk about taxes and healthcare and your legacy. So taxes, healthcare, and your legacy. There's the last couple of things down the downside of the mountain. Remember, I told you just a minute ago about how you withdraw your funds can have a tax implication for sure. Things like RMDs, required minimum distributions, all those kind of things. Healthcare, you got to think about healthcare. You probably don't, you don't have your employer's healthcare plan anymore. Yes, you'll have Medicare, but that's probably not enough. You're gonna have to have some of the supplements, and that may not be enough. But then the bigger thing is the long-term care. 70% of Americans are going to have some form of long-term care, whether that's in an assisted living or nursing home, or whether that's at home care. The stat is 70% of Americans are going to need that. So how are you going to fund that? And then do you want to leave a legacy to anybody, once you're gone? So those are the three main areas, and then you can see there's the breakdown areas on each one of those. All those components and all those subcomponents have things to think about and things to lay out, and you should have a written plan where all this is laid out. Okay, so that's kind of the retirement mountain with the peak, if you will. So let's dive down here a little bit. All that leads to a spending pattern for the most part of this retirement smile. Retirement smile is up top. You're active when you first when you first retire. You're doing more things. You're active. You're traveling. You're doing all the fun stuff. You start slowing down a little bit. You go down to that sedentary phase. You get a little bit older. Your mind may think, well, hey, I want to do these things, but your body don't really feel like it. You're going to the 4 o'clock early bird dinner specials, and you're in bed at 8 o'clock. Obviously, that's different for everybody, but generally, you just don't do as much as you start going down into that phase. And then so your expenses go down. You're not doing as much. Maybe spending more time at home or just hanging out with family, whatever that may be. And then the upswing there is your healthcare costs, because when you get later on in life, we're gonna have more medical issues, and you're gonna have more expenses in and around medical. So it forms that retirement smile. That's all in the distribution phase, and you got to figure out each of those subcategories or subsections and how those are going to be funded, and what kind of vehicles, and how and when. Okay, so notice it forms a smile. I love that because I always talk about retire happy and the retire happy factors. Before I go into the next thing, we're talking about financial aspects of retirement planning, but there's a huge first step that before you ever get into any of this stuff, is the non-tangible, intangible aspects of retirement. It's the non-financial things, right? What do you want to get out of retirement? What do you want to do in retirement? What's your purpose in retirement? What's going to fulfill you in retirement? What's going to make you happy in retirement? Right? You can think about it in a couple different levels. Obviously, you want to cover your needs. But what are your wants, and then what are your dreams? That means, and that's one thing we do in coaching as well, is that we help you identify what that is. It's a big transition going from working life to retired life. And what do you want to do in retirement? Are you going to volunteer, or are you going to help charities out? Are you going to spend time with family? Are you going to travel? Are you going to pick up hobbies? Are you going to go back to school? There's so many different things. What's going to fulfill you, obviously outside of a relationship with Christ, but what is going to fulfill you and make you happy in retirement? The reason we talk about that on the front end before we ever get into the financial side is that's going to drive your retirement plan and how we're going to fund it. Are we going to fund that? The things that you want to do. And it's different for everybody. It's deeply personal. So that's really before you ever that's a big part of the plan. So that's kind of a prefix to the plan, before you get to the first chapter, is identifying your purpose and what's going to fulfill you in retirement, that non-financial side. All right. So I told you I want to talk about risk here a little bit. So in retirement risk, there's really six main risks that when we're doing a plan, both on the accumulation and the distribution phase, that we want to make sure we take off the table or at least minimize. You have market risk. That's the fluctuations in the market going up and down in your investments. Taxation risk. How much are you paying in taxes? How much can you reduce that? The order in which you withdraw your funds makes a difference in taxes. The money that you put in an accumulation phase, are they tax deferred, tax free, whatever it may be, you got to factor all that in, especially on the distribution side. Inflation risk. We all know about inflation, and now it's leveled off a little bit, but we felt the pain of inflation. You got to account for what the dollar is going to be worth down the road, and you got to account for inflation risk in your planning. What's dollar today is not going to be a dollar tomorrow. The withdrawal risk, the rate in which you withdraw down your funds. Some people may have heard that 4% rule. Kind of applies, but it's really kind of aged at this point. It needs to be adjusted, and that's just a really very, very, very simplistic way of looking at it. So withdrawal risk is how and when you're taking those funds out of your retirement accounts. The last two on here are the biggest ones that are affecting retirees. Sequence of returns risks. It's that peak. That's that protection zone. If you are withdrawing funds out of your retirement account while the market's going down, it has a compounding effect on how long your money's going to last. In one of these episodes or live streams, we're going to talk about sequence of returns risk a little more in depth. I'm going to show you some graphs to talk about someone that takes a hit in the market up front versus someone that takes a hit down at the bottom. And the person that takes it up front is much worse off, right? Some people may be saying, well, we can't control the market. No, you can't control the market, but there are ways to protect yourself against sequence of returns. It is a huge, huge risk that ends up making people's money not last as long in retirement. So we got to take that off the table, if nothing else. We'll talk about that a little bit deeper in a future broadcast, if you will. Sequence of returns, huge. Longevity risk. In general, we're living longer. So are we going to outlive our money? How are we going to take that longevity risk off the table? Those are six main risks, not to mention things like healthcare and all that kind of stuff. But from a financial standpoint, these are some of the six main risks. And really the healthcare kind of goes into the withdrawal rate, because are you counting for that retirement smile or not? So the withdrawal risk. So we got to take so as you're planning your retirement, the prefix with what you want to do with it. And then on the financial side, the up and the downside of that mountain, we got to account for all six of these risks and either minimize them or take them off the table. This has to be part of your plan. If it's not, you don't have a complete plan. Okay. Those are the base, formulation parts. So those are the base concepts and pieces of a plan. Obviously, there's a lot more detail that branches off each of those. And we'll dive into some of those subcategories as we go through, the weeks ahead. Because there's going to be a conversation on each one of those different facets. But before we wrap up for today, I want to go back and kind of take it back to some basics here, and how this all, and what the Bible teaches us too about finances. Some of you that have been around for a while, you may have received the Faith and Finance document. You may have heard me talk about this. There's some past sessions that talk about scriptures and things in and around the finances in the Bible and good stewardship. I just want to take it back to just a couple core components to kind of close us out here today. So in Proverbs 10:4, you find it says, "A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent make rich." talking about planning here, right? You got to have a plan. Um, got to have a plan. Proverbs 21:5, the plans of the diligent lead to profit, and as surely as haste leads to poverty. Again, got to have a plan. Plan things out. We're not winging it. Now, I know some people are more spontaneous than others, but we're not talking about where we're going for dinner or what we're going to do this weekend. Um, we're talking about your future, your comfortability, your fulfillment in retirement. And then in Luke 14:28 through 30, gives a little more details, given a kind of a parable here. For which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation, is not able to finish. All who see it begin mocking him, saying, "This man began to build and was not able to finish." So you didn't have a complete plan, and that's what I see a lot out there. Though, is people think about the accumulation phase, they don't think about the distribution phase, or they don't think about all aspects of the accumulation phase. They don't think about all the different risks. You got to have a plan. You got to have a complete plan. And if you don't, here I relate it to as well. Okay, you sat down and you build a foundation, but run out of money in retirement if it's not planned properly. Wise wisdom's been Luke there. The other things I just like to comment on here is, people talk about money being evil or all those different things. God never said He doesn't want us to have money. It's what we do with it, is all the difference. Money doesn't, like I say here, money doesn't have a life. It cannot act on its own. It cannot do good deeds. It cannot commit crimes. It's neither good nor bad. Money can only do what you tell it to do, right? It's not the root of all evil. Money is not the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of evil. 1 Timothy 6:10, right? So it's us. We're controlling it. We're the ones that make it evil. What are you doing with your money? Money itself may be immoral, but it's our attachment to and the worship of money that will lead us to make poor financial decisions. Again, us, us. Are we being good stewards? Are we doing what we're supposed to do with it? And what I love saying, you've heard me say this before, when it comes to money, we'll either worship with our money, or we'll worship wealth or worship with our wealth, or worship money or worship with our money. What are we doing with it, right? It doesn't mean you can't have things. It doesn't mean you can't have a good retirement. It can't mean you can't have fun, right? But if God has entrusted us with funds, He wants us to be good stewards with it and be ready for His call on what He wants us to do with our life to fulfill our purpose that He has for us. If we're not good stewards, if we're blowing our money, we might not be in a position to do what He's calling us to do. And part of Him calling us what we're there to do is also we got to take care of ourselves as well. But He wants us to help and take care of others as well. But if we're not good stewards in provisioning and planning what He's provisioned us with, we're not holding up our end of the bargain and being good stewards and being ready for what He has called in our lives. Right? There's a big difference between worshiping with our wealth or worshiping wealth. Right? Again, guys, if you have questions, hit me up with comments down there. These are some things that we go through in our coaching programs as we're working with people. Let me know if you have any questions about. We've helped tons of people within our coaching programs, through the non-changeable stuff, the non-financial stuff, obviously with the financial things as well, to put it all together so you end up with a plan. The coaching programs are more of a DIY kind of thing where you get an online class and you get coaching sessions with myself along the way, and you end up with a full-fledged plan. We've helped tons of people out with this. We get all different types of people that enter into this thing, and it fulfills the passion that I have to help people be ready for retirement, no matter how old you are, no matter how young you are, how late you are at starting, no matter how much money you have. If you have questions about anything we talked about tonight, or questions about coaching programs or whatnot, hit me up in the comments. I'll be more than happy to get back with you, or send me a DM, a direct message, or schedule a time with me, whatever it may be. But hit me up. Happy to help answer any questions. Y'all have a very Merry Christmas, and we will chat soon. Take care, y'all.